I went from 20% to 10% body fat, not by doing insane workouts, not by starving myself, and not by being perfect, because the truth is, fat loss isn't about intensity. It's about what you do every day without thinking. Most people try to lose weight or body fat by going all in for a few weeks, but I got lean by fixing the small decisions I was making 15 times a day. So in this video, I'm going to show you the 7 micro habits I follow every single day that took me from 20% to 10% body fat and have kept me there ever since. I've been a personal trainer for 11 years and trained myself for over 14 years. And the clearest way I can show you why these habits matter starts with something that completely changed how I think about fat loss. And once I fixed those, fat loss became automatic. And before I get into the habits, I need to clear something up that most people get completely wrong. Because once you understand this, it changes how you think about everything else. So you probably think the equation looks something like this: 80% workouts, 20% everything else. So you train hard enough, consistently enough, the fat will just come off. But here's what's actually happening. Around 60% of the calories you burn every single day come from just keeping you alive. Your heart beating, your organs working, your body taking over while you sit completely still, while you're scrolling through Instagram or watching videos like this on YouTube. Another 20% or so comes from all the movement you do outside the gym. Walking to your car, taking the stairs, moving around at work, all the stuff that doesn't feel like exercise. And actual workouts, well, around 5 to 10% of your total daily calorie burn is what that is. So if you're only focused on the gym sessions and ignoring everything else, you're working on about 5% of the actual full picture. And the habits I'm about to show you target the other 95%. And most of them take almost no effort once they're locked in. And these habits are built into the Softer Lean program in the description. It's completely free, which is the full structure I use with every single client from day one. So the first habit sounds almost too simple once you know it, but what it does to your daily calorie burn is genuinely surprising once you see the numbers. Like, I didn't start getting lean by training harder. I started by just moving more outside of the gym. No structured cardio, no extra sessions, just adding more movement to the day I was already going through anyway. So for example, this could be walking while I was on calls instead of sitting down, parking a bit further away, taking the stairs here and there, getting up and moving between tasks rather than just staying glued to the chair like I am now for hours on end. And none of these feel like exercise. None of them are comfortable, but across a full day, they add up to a meaningful difference. And across a week, that difference compounds into something that actually moves the needle. So I aim for somewhere around 8 to 10k steps a day. I know everyone bangs on about 10k steps as being this holy grail at the minute, but it really is arbitrary. But most of those don't come from dedicated walks. They just come from not always choosing the lazy option when there's a slightly more active one right in front of me. And with the 3-session structure already in place, this is the habit that fills in the gaps between those sessions and keeps the daily calorie expenditure where it needs to be without adding in anything else that feels like loads of hard work. Habit number 2, which is water before decisions. And this one costs nothing and takes about 10 seconds. And trust me, I know a lot about less than 10 seconds. And it's one of the most effective hunger tools I use without really thinking about it anymore. So before every meal and before any snack, I drink a full glass of water or have this bottle with squash inside it. I always make sure I have a decent amount when I'm feeling peckish. Not because water magically burns fat, it definitely doesn't, but because hunger and thirst use the same signal, and a lot of what feels like a craving at 3 p.m. or 9 p.m. is actually just dehydration. Your brain is reading it as hunger. So think of your stomach like a balloon. Water fills it up before food arrives, which means you naturally eat a little bit less without trying to eat less. There's no willpower involved. The system does the work. And once this becomes a habit, you stop thinking about it. It's just what you do before eating. And the drop in unnecessary snacking that follows is pretty noticeable and is quite quick. Okay, habit number 3, default meals. And this is probably the most powerful habit in the list and the one most people completely write off because it sounds boring. And here's the problem with deciding what to eat every single day. You're making that decision after a full day of work, when you're already tired, when you might be a bit stressed, when you're already slightly hungry, which is the exact combination that leads to the worst food choices every single time. You don't need more willpower, or most people don't anyway. You need fewer decisions. So instead of relying on willpower to make a good call in that moment, I just remove the decision entirely. So for example, you have the same breakfast every morning, which is the protein oats I've eaten every day for nearly 5 years and everyone calls me boring. And then I have 2 or 3 go-to lunches I know hit the protein target and keep me full until dinner. And dinner is where the variety is. So this is where we can mix it up. And it's whatever fits the week. Eating out when it comes up, maybe on a Friday or Saturday. But because the first two meals are locked in before the day even starts, the day's calories are mostly sorted before that decision fatigue has had a chance to kick in. My client Cashier did exactly the same thing. He had a demanding job. He had these usual weeks were the weeks where there generally was no mental energy left for food decisions by 7 p.m. So once we locked in his default breakfast and 2 or 3 go-to lunches, the evening stopped being a problem because the foundation was already solid and we knew the calories of those meals. So his default decisions made the right choices happen pretty much automatically. And it wasn't through any willpower, just through not having to decide. Like, how much of a nightmare is it when you get to lunchtime, you don't know what you want, but you're starving, you finished a morning full of work, and you're just raiding the cupboards, and you're looking for something to eat, and it's just that extra mental energy. And because you can't be asked to cook anything, you end up just eating something which is pretty high calorie, pretty convenient. But then you have a crash at around 3 p.m. because it didn't really help your energy levels going forward. And this is the earned balance in action. It's just default meals that make the right thing happen without you having to fight for it every day. Habit 4, the baseline week. A lot of people I speak to either ignore the food intake completely or just obsess over it. Neither works long term. So what I did and what I do with every client before changing anything is spend 1 week understanding the actual starting point. We're not playing this weird guessing game. We're genuinely, honestly tracking the calories for at least 1 week to see what's actually going in, what the intake is. And this is the assessment week, and it's what everything else gets built on. And here's the thing. Most people think they need to track calories forever. You don't. The assessment week is about understanding your starting point, not logging every gram for the rest of your life. Although if you want to be really accurate, of course, you can do that if you want. I first started tracking back at the end of 2013, and I tracked nearly every day for 2 years. But that, all those years ago, is built up my knowledge now, so I know exactly how many calories are in most meals that I have. And here's what a lot of people find when they actually do this properly. That weekday picture is usually fine. So in other words, the weekday, they track quite well, but the weekend is where the numbers change. Meals out that are bigger than expected. A few drinks with the lads or the missus that don't feel like food, but adds up really fast. A Sunday that starts well and ends up undoing the whole week. And none of it feels like overeating in the moment, but the numbers tell a completely different story. But after the assessment week, you've got the information you need. What a normal week actually looks like and where the gaps actually are, and what a genuine calorie deficit looks like for your specific starting point. After that, it becomes awareness rather than just obsession. You're just not operating blind anymore. We know exactly what's going to work for you, and more importantly, what isn't. And if you want the full structure rather than just the habits, the Soft and Lean 4-week program in the description has everything mapped out from day one. So make sure you go get that. Habit 5, every single meal has a protein anchor. Not sometimes, not when I remember. Every meal, every day, without exceptions. Around 0.7 to 1 gram per pound of body weight across the day, split across 3 separate meals ideally. This isn't complicated, it's just making sure there's a decent amount of protein at breakfast, lunch and dinner, rather than treating it as an optional extra. It helps me feel fuller. 2, it's going to help with the recovery from the gym as well. And it reduces the cravings that show up later in the day. And once you're consistently hitting the protein target, the other habits get way easier. So the 9 p.m. cravings drop. The decision fatigue around food decreases massively. And the whole thing feels way more manageable. And this isn't a tip. It's the single most impactful nutritional change you can make. And it costs nothing once you know what it looks like in practice. So habit 6, the bad day default. Fat loss doesn't fall apart on good days. It falls apart on the pretty bad ones. The long day, the stressful week at work, the evening where everything in the kitchen looks appealing and there's no energy left to make a good call and cook dinner. You know, we've all been there after a long day of work and the last thing you want to do is spend 30 to 45 minutes cooking dinner. So instead of relying on discipline in that moment, which is the approach that falls apart pretty much every single time, I built a default for bad days. So high protein snacks already in the fridge, glass of water first, wait 10 to 15 minutes before deciding on anything else. Most of the time, the 10 minutes is enough for the craving to pass anyway, or settle into something more manageable. Or a really good hack that I'm doing at the minute, which I've done over the years as well, is have a diet drink of some sort. For example, me is Pepsi Max. And if you prefer Diet Coke over Pepsi Max, just click off this video now, because Pepsi Max is way more tasty, has no calories, and get the caffeine-free version as well. And then after 10 minutes, if I still want something, I have it. Just more of a considered version of it, rather than whatever happened to the nearest in the moment of low willpower. The never miss twice rule lives here too. So one bad evening doesn't write off a week. One bad day doesn't mean Monday is a fresh start. The bad day default means a rough evening stays as a rough evening rather than turn into a whole rough week. Habit 7, choose slight inconvenience. The last habit sounds almost counterintuitive, but it's the one that underpins everything else. So everywhere, there's a small choice between convenience and a little bit of effort. I consistently take the slight effort option. So for example, that could be stairs instead of the lift. It could be walking to see a colleague rather than messaging them. It could be cooking something simple rather than ordering when it's a borderline call. Parking a few minutes away rather than right outside. And none of these matter on their own, but here's what happens when you make this choice consistently over months and years. You stop trying to get lean and start acting like someone who just is. And that's a big shift. And once it happens, the habits stop feeling like habits. They're just how you move through the day and how you move through the week. And this is the earned balance, which I talk about in all my videos, at the more identity level. It's not a rule you're following, it's just who you are. Going from 20% to 10% body fat wasn't about one dramatic thing. It wasn't a specific diet or a perfect program or some period of extreme discipline. It was these 7 habits running quietly in the background every day, making the right choice automatically, rather than putting a lot of effort into it. But here's what most people then hit, even once the habits are all in place. And it catches almost everyone off guard at the same specific point in the process. There's one phase of fat loss that feels like nothing is happening. The body feels like it's resistant, and most people change everything at exactly the wrong moment. So understanding what's actually going on at that point is what separates the people who get there from the people who reset and start again for the 4th bloody time. And I've got a video that covers exactly what that is somewhere over here, so watch it next.